He learned his craft working with the greats and quickly became one of them. In addition to his illustrious career spanning film, TV, theatre, and most recently our computers with Fishamble's Tiny Plays premiere this weekend, John is also an Irish Theatre Award winner. John, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. How are you keeping?
I'm very well, Kelly. I'm great.
Brilliant.
That was some introduction.
I know, and not even, I honestly don't think it's long enough for you to be fitting for a legend as yourself. But yeah, I want to just gonna get stuck into the questions now, John. So as I understand, you started off on stage from an early age, but not as an actor. You played in a band. Can you tell us a bit about your journey from there? Made you fall in love with it?
Well, you see, I grew up in the 60s. And of course, like everybody else, we discovered the Beatles in Kells, County Meath. And sure, of course, we had to form a band because everybody was forming bands at that stage, even though none of us could play an instrument. So we started to take lessons here, there, and everywhere. I went down to the nuns in the convent, asked them, would they teach me to play the piano? And then I progressed to a few chords on a guitar. And then before you know it, we were playing locally in the local hall and sort of in Navan and in the local golf club. And it was good crack. And then, of course, things progressed and, people came, band members came, and then we formed another band. And then it broke up after a while because there were no venues for us to play in, would you believe, even in Dublin. I mean,
what?
Other than pubs. And we were kind of a folk ensemble. And we sang acoustic, with acoustic guitars. And we just, there were no venues. Like for instance, the bands at the time, like Sweeney's Men and the Johnsons, were playing in bars, and the stuff that we were doing, it just didn't suit that kind of, an atmosphere. And we were on one night with Danny Doyle, I remember, in Liberty Hall, and I was the whole audience was drunk. And we came on all serious and singing our really deep songs. And there were 4 girls in the band and myself and my cousin. And they were all full of meaning and full of, philosophy. And they did not want to hear us. They just told us to F off. So we literally had to leave the stage before finishing the set. They just wanted Danny Doyle. They just wanted, sing-along stuff. So after that, we broke up. And I said, what am I going to do now? So I decided I'd go into the Abbey School of Acting to learn stage techniques so that the next time we went on stage, we wouldn't have to walk off. So acting was kind of like secondary. So I went into the Abbey School to learn production techniques. But unfortunately, that wasn't a subject that was being taught in the Abbey School of Acting.
Oh. So you went for the acting
was
instead then?
2 hours on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And that was it. And if you were working, that's how you paid your rent. There was I think there was a slight fee, at the time. I'm not quite sure. But then you got work then in the Abbey as an extra, and you got something like £2.50 a week, £2.50 a week to do the extra work.
Wow.
And but you see, it was all relative because rent was about £4. So it was back in those days. That's how long ago.
Yeah, I'd love if that was the case now, John.
I know. I wish it was myself. But anyway, that suddenly I was, I went for an audition for the Abbey School, and the next thing I found myself in a play, and in the Peacock. So that was the beginning.
Was that a professional? Was that a professional production?
Yeah, it was an Abbey production.
You walked into a professional,
and he says, "Join the cast." and it wasn't just a walk on. I had actual lines in the play.
Wow. What was that like?
Scary as hell. I didn't know. But it turned out to be the maddest production of a play I have ever seen. Well, I thought it was crazy then, not knowing anything to judge it by. But it turned out to be the maddest production. It was a production of Let the Ravens Feed was the name of the play. It was about the Brian Boru and the Battle of Clontarf, and the lead up to the Battle of Clontarf, and there were there were 64 characters in the play.
So you had
the entire Abbey
baptism
school
of fire then.
Yeah. But it was hilarious. I had a great time doing it.
Is that when you fell in love with acting?
Yeah, well, it was all good fun. You know what I mean? It was all.
You just enjoyed the crack.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So obviously you're talking about, you joined the Abbey School of Acting. How important was your experience working with the leading actors of Irish theatre at that time?
Well, now, that's where you learned how to do it. It wasn't in the school. The school was, it was mainly a club, like for young fellas and young ones. And you went up there and you chatted and talked about, the latest release and record release, or, the latest film you saw or whatever. There was very little work done. And then you listened to Frank Dermody, who was a brilliant man in his own right, but not the best teacher in the world. But he'd rant on about, how he thought actors should behave. And you just listen to him going on and on and on and on and on and on and on forever. And then you just, you went down and you did extra work. And then you watched how the actors did it, And at the time, I remember Frank Dermody saying things like, he had kind of pearls of wisdom the odd time. He used to say, whenever you pass an Abbey actor in the corridor, lower your eyes, because every night they're in touch with the divine. You see? So for years, I never looked an Abbey actor in the eye. I used to say, "Hello, Mr. Cave. Hello, Bernadette. Hello," and I'd keep my eyes lowered the whole time, every time I passed them, for years. And I told this to, some of them are my best friends now, So I told them this, and they said, "You fucking idiot." What are you doing? I says, "I walked by you for 2 years without even looking at your face, because Frank Dermody told me that you're in touch with the divine every night, so we shouldn't look in your face."
That is hilarious.
Yeah, but it did teach you a certain amount of respect. You know what I mean? You felt that these people you were serving your time, and these were the master craftsmen. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, watching them do their thing on stage must have been amazing at the time. Yeah.
You watched them and you kept your eye on them, and you saw when they moved, and you saw, and you just picked it up as you were watching. And I was there for about 3 years, I think, in the Abbey School of Acting.
Wow. And so obviously, that was 1969, and you've had an unbelievable career, spanning decades, and just successful career. It's good, John. It's good. You've been, constantly working in all different areas of theatre. I'm sure there weren't that many times, but when you weren't working in theatre, did you have any other jobs that you found yourself doing in between gigs?
No.
No. Oh my gosh. You are like you are a rare phenomenon.
No, I never did anything else.
That's
I know it's kind of
amazing.
mad. Yeah. But it was a much smaller family at the time. And it was a family because everybody knew everybody else. I mean, there wasn't an actor, that you didn't know. I mean, it was like living in a small town. And
Yeah.
there was still, everybody was still giving out about no work and blah, blah, blah. And everybody was complaining about, but not the younger people. There were, we were all like in little groups. Like, for instance, I went in from the Abbey school. I went into the young Abbey, which was like 6 actors, and we did everything. We did the sets, made the props, we drove the van, and we went around all the schools. It was a bit like Team, which was a follow on from the young Abbey, and that lasted for a while. I was touring. We toured all over the country, and then
Wow.
we were paid the lowest Abbey rate, which was about 24 pounds at the time. But we were also paid a touring allowance, which brought it up. So at the time, we were very well looked after, very well paid.
Yeah. So with £24
relatively speaking.
context,
I mean,
was that a lot of money, £24 at that time?
No, it wasn't a lot of money. I mean, the average, I remember it would have been, the average industrial wage would have been about 50 quid or about 40 or 50 quid at the time. But it was all right. I mean, my rent, I had a flat in North Great George's Street in a beautiful room. You know what I mean? Now, again, it was a bed sit. It was rough and ready. You shared a bathroom. Well, not a bathroom. You shared a Jack's and a what?
We've all had those, John. We've all had those.
And but the room itself was beautiful. It was the music room. It was on the first floor, and I paid 8 quid a week. So
yeah, wow,
it was nothing really.
Yeah,
but it was 8 quid out of 25. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I suppose as artists, theatre like makers and actors, we go into the arts because we love it. And so, sometimes we accept less than we deserve in terms of payment, and sometimes on occasion like treatment. How has that changed? How has your attitude changed throughout your career towards, payment and treatment? Can you talk to us about that, like from obviously how your experience grew on that?
Well, I was very lucky. I mean, I never had much gripe about money. Now, I remember making allowances for, if you worked for a freelance company, that hadn't much money, well, you took what you got and you just were delighted you got the work. And you said, well, yeah, great. But if you worked, say, for the National Theatre or the Abbey or the Gate, or they were there was a fixed rate, and Equity were fairly strong at the time, and there was the rules and regulations about payment were very strict, and there were Equity had a lot of power, and the actors had a lot of power because there was a players' council in the Abbey, and they had an input on whatever deal they made with the management for their payment. That was reciprocated outside, in the outer world, in the freelance world. So there was the actors were able to control their standard of pay.
Yeah.
So it was all right, but that doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't. I feel like sometimes actors. Yeah, it is, and actors, because I suppose it is the family, you called it, gotten ginormous. It's a big family now in Ireland of actors.
Yeah,
You know,
big fan.
it is a big family, so it's slightly more competitive, and obviously you get theatre makers and artists taking less then because as you said, it's the work and they're happy to do the work, but sometimes they're
Yeah,
living on nothing, you know.
yeah, and big rents.
Yeah. You know, John, it could be easy to say, you know, wow, it was all like plain sailing, smooth sailing, and it was all highs and all positives. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some disappointments you might have had, or near misses on parts, or anything like that?
Well, the biggest setback I had was I was in the Abbey School of Acting, and this was the first time something happened, and nothing as serious has happened since, and I hope it never happens again. But there was somebody went sick in the show, and it was a full-on Abbey play. It was the Seagull, Chekhov's
Oh,
Seagull,
Chekhov.
and
Yeah.
someone got sick, and I was asked would I go into it, and I was only up from Kells, like, sure, I didn't know, and I said no, and they said, well, you know, you'll damage your career if you don't, you know, do this. Because I was the last in they were scraping the bottom of the barrel, but I didn't know that at the time because everybody else had said they wouldn't do it. But I didn't know that. So I went
Right.
on with the book and tried to read it. But like I was so scared that it just didn't work. And so I looked about 12.
That was a bit unfair. That was a bit. Did you have any rehearsal, John?
No, straight on.
Oh.
Now I was playing an extra in the play, but like I didn't know how to do it. But
Yeah.
then after 3 nights, I was replaced by somebody that could do it. But they'd been rehearsing during the day while I was, you know, making an idiot of myself at night. And I said, I'm going home now and I'm not coming back. I'm not doing this anymore. I was really, really knocked for six. And
Yeah.
I didn't know. No, but really, I mean, seriously, I said, this is it. I can't do this. I'm not able. And so Tomas McDonagh, who was a director, he was artistic director of the Peacock at the time, and he saw me and he understood exactly what happened, and he put his arms around me and he says, I have a big part for you down in the Peacock. Come down, don't get too worried, forget about all that rubbish, you know, come down to me. And he put his arms around me and he brought me down and he gave me a small part in a play called The Plebeians Rehearse the Uprising. And he saved me bacon, really.
And he got you
saved
back
me from
into
myself.
it.
Yeah.
But I mean, John, that sounds like every actor's worst nightmare. It's like that dream that actors have where they're shoved on the stage and they don't know the lines and they don't know the book. Yeah, exactly. And you lived through that. Do you find that you're a better actor as a result of it?
No, I'm terrified every time.
Fair enough.
No, really.
We'll chalk it down to experience.
The thing about it is, if you go on stage and the whole job is to look as if it's the easiest thing in the world. You know, that's the hardest part, to make it look like as if, sure, Jesus, this is great crack. You know, that's the hard part. I mean, but literally your insides are going, Janie, get me over here. You know what I mean? And I thought this was, until recently, I thought it was only me who was feeling this. And it's only listening to people talking on shows like this and on television and different interviews with people that anxiety is huge in the business. Like, huge. And, you know, I got some relief in the last 12 months listening to people talking about, I mean, actors like Judi Dench and, big actors, who go on stage and massive roles, and they feel exactly the same. I mean, I was relieved to hear that.
Yeah, that you're not alone in it. Like, because obviously this is what this is actually what this episode is about. This week is about mental health and well-being and how we cope with those anxieties. Do you have any tricks of the trade, John? How do you I suppose mind yourself?
I got married. And
yeah.
I had 2 children, and suddenly all that kind of takes second fiddle. You play second fiddle on with all that anxiety and everything. And when you have responsibilities like that, and then a mortgage, and then electricity bills and all sorts of things, and you stop thinking about yourself. You start thinking about other people, and with the result that, and it helped too that Catherine, who's my wife, it helped that she was an actress, so it worked out. I mean, looking back, like, if I wasn't working, she was working, or if I was working, she wasn't working, so that there was always somebody there to mind the kids. Now, we had a load of babysitters that kind of like on call, to just run in and just take over whenever was needed. And they were fantastic. Without them, we couldn't have done it. But there was a kind of a sharing. Like, once there was one wage coming in all the time, it just eased everything. Do you know what I mean? It made everything much easier.
Yeah. So Catherine, would you say, was your biggest support then in your career? Yeah. And vice versa.
Yeah. I know. I wouldn't have been able to do it. It would have been mad to try and do it like on my own and try, and cope with all the lunacy that goes on in the business.
Absolutely. I know what you're saying.
You can just like retreat home to a whole new set of problems. Do you know what I mean? And it puts everything in perspective.
Absolutely. You spoke there of Catherine and your sons, and actually you last night only in Amble's tiny plays with Catherine and Jack. How was it to work with them in that context?
Great, yeah. Well, I've worked with Catherine several times, over the years, and but yeah, it was great. It was great fun to have Jack in it as well. It was great crack.
He's just come back from London. Notes?
Huh? Yes, of course. Oh, even when we're not working together, I get notes and I give notes all the time.
Great, and I suppose you're kind of used to that now, and it's received.
Yeah. Well, it's asked for. Do you know what I mean? It's not. Yeah. I don't give them, unwillingly. Like they ask me what I think. if
I suppose you've learned that the hard way.
Oh yes.
Oh, brilliant. So, can you tell us a little bit, John, about when you won the Irish Theatre Award in 2011 for your role as Burn Maggie? Well, actually, talk first about being nominated and then tell us a little bit about the win.
Yeah, well, I love John B. Keane. Like, I had done John B. Keane's back in the Abbey, back in the, when was it? Back in the 80s, Catherine and myself we did The Field together, we did Sive, we did Big Maggie, we did Sharon's Grave. Like, we did a load of Keane plays when there was a kind of a big revival of Keane back then, back in the 80s. And then Druid then in what year was it? 2000, it was the early 2000s, I think. And they asked me to do Big Maggie, a different part. They asked me to play Bourne. And I was delighted, it was great crack. And then to be nominated was like a big surprise. And
how did you hear about the nomination?
Oh, I can't remember, Kelly. I can't remember. I think it was just, I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, to hear my name called out, going into the auditor, I got a terrible fright. And I just went up, and I can't remember what I said, but
was it just a blur?
Yeah. But,
God, it must have been such a moment of pride for you, John, because I suppose all actors have that hope to win something or to be recognised. Was it nice?
Well, it's not winning. The winning is something. It was more just to be recognised by people that you're working. You're working away.
Yeah, your peers. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit now about how the sector has grown and changed so much since trained. How do you feel that change has impacted on newly trained actors and theatre makers?
Well, it's all got a bit serious now. I remember, back when it wasn't too serious, people say, oh, the productions must have been terrible. They must have been, but some of the best productions I have ever seen were back then. You had, things like Des Cave's the Oedipus Rex, and, the Sanctuary Lamp. Tom Murphy's Sanctuary Lamp, and the first production of it, and the first production of Morning After Optimism, and there was a production of The Well of the Saints with Eamon Kelly and Máire Ní Dhomhnaill, which stunning, fantastic, they're not done. The big productions like that are not done anymore. Do you know what I mean? Or they're very few and far between.
Yeah,
but there was people were less. It's not that they were less serious about the work. There seemed to be more fun in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I know what you're saying. It's all very serious and competitive, and there's a lot of people going around with folders and managements and people talking about grants, and oh man, it's just
it's a minefield now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just, and it's too serious. I find it's too serious for what you have to do, because unless you have to be sort of lighthearted to do what we do.
You say now to yourself, lucky that you found acting when you found it, in your day as opposed to now. How would you navigate it now?
I don't know. I think I wouldn't. I think, you see, I don't think it would happen the same way as it happened for me back then. You see, it kind of all fell into place. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't planned. There was no kind of, there wasn't, you see, at the time there were no agents. There were no kind of, like for instance, the top corridor of the Abbey, there were about half a dozen people running the Abbey, like the office.
Yeah.
There was the girl who handed out the wages. There were 2 people in box office, 2 people in the manager's office, and a couple of other PR people. But that was it.
And now A huge operation, the Abbey.
200 or 300 people, you know what I mean? All running around with folders. You know, human resource
John,
people.
that's a great
kind of
image. That's such a good image.
people in offices the size of a cupboard. You know, it's just crazy stuff.
Yeah, what you're saying, for sure.
I mean,
and obviously now we're in a very strange time now for acting as well, particularly at the moment, you know, because a lot of things have stalled. But obviously you have managed to keep busy. I saw you there on the screen. You've been in an advert for 3, the network. Can you talk about how you even film that during lockdown?
Well, it was done at the very beginning of the lockdown, and we were all a bit scared. And because I am the age I am, I mean, you know, Catherine says, you're not going anywhere. You're staying locked. Because it was just so dangerous. So this ad came in, and I said, how am I going to do this? And they said, well, we'll do it. You can do it from your house, from your living room. And I said, I've never heard of this done before. And they said, well, we haven't done it before either. It's all new. So two fellas came along in a van, like a high-ace van, and they unloaded a couple of lights and a tripod, and they put it in the window of the house, and Catherine took it in. The fellas were shouting and saying, put it there, put it there. I put up, erected the thing. I knew the few lines that I had. They stuck 2 iPhones together, and Catherine was looking at one, and I was looking at the other. And the director was on one of the iPhones, and he was in the south of France. He was cocooning with his father in the south of France, and that's how he made how he was.
What? So he was directing you from the south of France in your.
Yeah, he was directing the guys in our front garden as well, and of course they put up a screen out to block the light from the front window, and of course everybody thought that, you know, when they saw all the activity and the wires and everything, that I had been, you know, infected of to some degree.
You were causing a stir.
So what the hell is going on there? Do you know what I mean? Because there was a screen around the window, and there was like wires and all sorts of yokes going out through the front garden.
That's amazing. So did Catherine shoot that then? Did Catherine shot that?
Yeah, she did all the sort of technical work. And
fair play. That's amazing.
You know, well, you know, it's like switching on and moving the camera, moving the lights around, and all that part of it.
Yeah. And wow. So it just shows you don't have to be in the same room anymore to make something.
See, it's just crazy. And I was amazed at the quality. The quality was
phenomenal. You would never have known that was shot on an iPhone.
No.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
Oh, and so and can you tell us a little bit about your the filming of the Amble piece that you did with Jack and Catherine? How was that?
Well, we had a couple of rehearsals like this, and we had one rehearsal I think like this, and then we went into Amble, build their rooms, you know, where they operate from.
Yeah.
And we had a rehearsal there, and we came in 2 days later and shot it.
Gosh, amazing!
It was that.
And so then, success. You know, such a nice thing to do, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of that now in the coming months. Yeah. It's still nice to create work. So on that note, John, like what advice would you have for any upcoming actors, and obviously that might be experiencing a bit of anxiety themselves as to what's going on at the moment?
Well, keep your fingers crossed, number one. I don't know. I don't know what's going. I mean, things happen in this business. You can't plan it. You never could. Things like float in the window, like literally in the last job. But they literally happen. And, you know, you're saying, I wonder will the phone ring today? And the phone rings. I don't know how that happens. You know, it just does. Now, I don't know whether it just happens for me, but that's the way.
I think it's safe to say that doesn't happen for everyone.
No, I'm sure it doesn't. I don't know. I mean, I've never actually sat down and planned a strategy, you know, of how I should, you know, conduct my career or, you know, conduct this business of acting. I've never, you know, it's not something you can
plan.
Just go home and make the dinner and, you know, do a bit of gardening. And when nothing is around, I go up and I do a bit of drawing or a bit of watercolor painting or something like that, you know, and that's what I do.
That's lovely, John. So I didn't know you did watercolor.
Yeah, I do a bit of that.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing it since I was at school. I mean, I've no formal training or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just something that you do to unwind and relax a bit.
Yeah. When I get that takes energy and time, and I mean the whole thing of, you know, I'm the biggest procrastinator in the world. I won't. I mean, I'd find any excuse not to go up and do a drawing or do something. You know, it just takes effort and energy to do it. But when I do find the time, or not the time, when I find the inclination, I'll go up and I'll, you know, do a few things.
Yeah. You mentioned gardening there as well. Are you a bit of a gardener yourself?
I'll do an odd bit, you know, nothing serious.
Yeah, but I mean, I only recently discovered gardening during COVID because it was one of those things where I was like, oh, well, what else am I going to do? I might as well spruce up my little garden. And I actually found it very therapeutic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I get up on the bike the odd night and I'll go off for a bit of a cycle around, you know, around the neighborhood, and, you know, it's great.
Yeah. Bit of cycling, bit of gardening, bit of watercoloring. God, you've loads there. Loads of nice things that you.
I have a membership in the gym, and, you know, you wouldn't think it, but I miss that because I love swimming. I'd swim, you know, 30 lengths like three, 4 times a week. But, you know, I love that. So I miss that a lot.
Yeah. Be able to get back into swimming and all those things very soon, because I'd be the same now. I miss the gym. Yeah. But John, it was absolutely a pleasure to speak to you. You're a great crack. I mean, your career has been amazing, and it's been so good to chat to you about, obviously, how you've unwinded during, you know, your time as an actor, and also how Catherine and your family have been such a support. That's been lovely to hear as well. And thank you so much for joining us here on Stage Door Live.
My pleasure, Kelly. Always a pleasure to talk to you.